Welcome to True Crime, Faith, and Chocolate. I'm your host, Annette Lyon, USA Today bestselling author of Just One More and many other books. Today's chocolate is somewhat dubious. I'm concerned about this one. The Kit Kat Duos Mint and Dark. Okay, I'm going to give it a try. Okay, I think they're going for like a grasshopper kind of thing. But too much mint, a little bit too much toothpastey for me. He and Lori first meet October of 2018. They meet at I believe it's a Preparing People conference. It was located in St. George, Utah, which is right on the border, the last little town before you hit Arizona. She had read some of his books and was a fan. At some point, I believe before this, Chad had developed his light-dark rating system, which is 100% not in line with LDS beliefs, especially the idea that if once you're dark, you can't be saved and all that kind of crap. So they meet in October. In November, Chad spends the night at Lori's home in the guest room, but it sounds like things are already happening between them. And then later on that month, they start texting and texting about Charles dying, her husband dying. And this is her third husband, by the way. We'll get into Lori again in another video, but this is her third husband, who from all accounts is like the best, such a great guy. And she was lucky to have him. So that's in November. Late December, early January, Lori tells her friend Zulema, if you watch the trial or listen to the trial, you'll recognize that name. Get into her another time. But her friend Zulema, she tells Zulema that Charles is no longer with us. His body is alive, but his spirit has been kicked out by an evil spirit. Now he's a zombie. And so some other spirit has taken over his body. So later in January, they found that Chad he Google searched for a man named Ned Schneider, who died in 1996. And ta-da! Supposedly that is the name of the spirit that has now taken over Charles's body, Ned. And then they start talking. She would talk to Charles as if he's Ned. I think on some level she believed some of this. But yeah, this is when things start to get weird. Her and Charles, Charles is like, what is going on here? She separates, and it looks like she didn't think she could get divorced or she would lose her exaltation. She'd already been divorced before, so I don't know why it would matter. She got divorced again, but whatever. But she separates from Charles. He goes on a business trip, and then she steals his truck from the airport, starts threatening him. He calls the police, and my wife's been threatening my life. She thinks she's this resurrected being, that she used to be married to Moroni. There's all this body cam footage you can see of some of that. Poor Charles is just trying to figure it out. He goes, I love my wife. I don't know what's going on. She plays the cops, so she looks completely sane to them. And they don't take the threat seriously because she didn't say, I will kill you, Charles. She said things like, I can take you out and things like that. But it wasn't a direct threat. They can't do much. They don't keep her. So if only. In the meantime, Chad and Lori are texting back and forth. He believes that he used to be the Apostle James, and she was his wife Elena, that they were close friends with Jesus. And then there was another, I'm forgetting, some other famous couple. They were in history as well. He says that there are portals they can use to talk to and visit to each other. They're essentially sexting. It's kind of gross. And at some point he actually even says that, oh, my life at home is with Tammy, mind you. It's like Harry Potter lit in the cupboard under the stairs. And then every few weeks I get to go see my goddess, which would be Lori. And he starts texting her this romance novel, which is essentially a thinly veiled version of their own relationship. And it's, again, incredibly poorly written and really disturbing. And again, they're both still married at this point. What the heck? Yeah, and let's just say he refers to his member as the Storm, and then so there's been jokes about the Storm, and it's disturbing and gross and ugh. Anyway, late June of 2019 now, Charles discovers that Lori created a fake email address to email Chad as if she were Charles to arrange for him to help with writing a book. And through some of this, Charles realizes they're having an affair, something weird's going on. He confronts Lori, she blows up. He says, I'm going to tell Tammy, because he learns of of Chad's wife. It appears that he reached out to Tammy, at least via email, if not via phone or text. So I don't recall if it's very clear what Tammy did with that information, if she believed it or what was going on there. But Chad and Lori are aware that at least Charles is figuring that there's something going on. July of 2019, Charles is, again, so concerned. He goes to one of Lori's brothers. Now, she has two brothers. One is Adam, and the other is Alex. So very similar names, both A names. So we're looking at Adam right now. And Adam shares his concerns that Lori's beliefs are going off the deep end. And the rest of the family is like, oh, well, so what if she's devout? That's fine. And Charles is like, no, this is more than just being devout and praying a lot and going to the temple a lot. There's more here. So Adam says, okay, I will fly in. We will have an intervention. We will see if we can get her stake president to talk to her. Now, the stake president is like he's the head over several congregations. So we have wards, several congregations that are geographic in nature, and then you have a group of them, say 10 or so, depending on factors, and then you have a stake president who is over all of them. I've heard that it's similar to like a diocese in the Catholicism. Now, in order to go to the temple and do work there, and for those who don't know, temples are not open on Sundays. This is where you do proxy work. It's ceremonial things. That's where people will often do proxy work and then pray and that kind of thing. But on Sundays, you go to churches, and that's where your worship services are. But to go to the temple, you have to get a temple recommend. And to get a temple recommend, you speak with your congregation head, which is your bishop, or one of his two counselors. And then you also have to speak to the stake president or one of his counselors. And a recommend is good for 2 years, and then you have to go through that process again, the 2 different interviews, before you can get your recommend renewed. And if a bishop or stake president discovers that you have committed some egregious sins or whatever, they can revoke your recommend at any time. So Adam and Charles are hoping that the stake president will hear them and go, ooh, this is problematic. She's having an affair, whatever, and then have a meeting with her and say, Lori, I'm taking away your temple recommend, and they're hoping that maybe they'll wake her up. So Adam flies into Arizona. He doesn't mention it to Lori at this point. He does talk to his other brother, Alex. You may have heard of Alex Cox involved with the case. And he does mention that he's there to Alex. And Alex is like, oh, you can't stay with me. Yeah, I'm actually going to be at Lori's house, which is weird because, like, Alex lives just a few minutes away from Lori, so why would you need to stay at Lori's house for any reason? But okay, whatever. And then suddenly things just go quiet. Like, Alex doesn't respond to anything. Charles stops responding. Adam's like, what has even going on? And then all of a sudden, the next day, Charles is killed by Alex. Alex shoots him, calls the police, claims it to be self-defense. So Tylee gets Social Security money from her father's death. And in August, Lori changes the account the money goes to. So it's no longer Tylee's account, it's now Lori's account. So it's depositing it into her own account. And that's part of the charges that Lori then was found guilty of was theft by deception, and is related to the Social Security money that she was stealing from her daughter. And well after her death too. Once Tylee was gone, the money still kept coming to Lori. So JJ, the little brother, the youngest, he was adopted by Charles. So biologically, Charles would be his great uncle. So Charles's sister Kay actually is JJ's grandmother biologically. I can map this out at some point. And he was born to parents who couldn't take care of him due to substance issues and whatnot. And he also is autistic, so he had special needs. So Kay, his grandmother, and Larry Woodcock take him in, but they're older and they're like, we can't give him as much attention as he needs. And so Lori and Charles say, hey, we'll adopt him. And so Kay's brother is Charles. That's the connection there. So the last time, JJ remains very close to Kay and Larry, Grandma and Grandpa. And they have FaceTime conversations all the time. And then the last one they had was on August 11th. And it was very brief, and Kay thought that was really odd. Like he was looking up, and as if someone was giving him directions and saying what he couldn't say. And it lasted like 30 seconds, and Kay's like, that's odd. And they keep trying to call, and they used to have like regular FaceTime conversations. And then Lori's like, oh, he can't talk right now, he can't talk. And they're getting very concerned. In September, Lori moves to Rexburg. We're now again in 2019. September 6th through 9th, so Alex goes up there with her. Alex, the brother. He now is completely sold that he is his job to protect his sister and do whatever she asks. So he's already killed her husband. He goes up there. There's now evidence of him being in Chad's backyard on September 7th, 8th, 9th, in that ballpark. And that we believe that is when Teddy was buried in his backyard. About that time, JJ is being referred to by Lori as being a zombie, and just as Tylee had been before that. And someone is labeled a zombie by Chad and Lori. They must be taken out, because that's what they do, apparently. So on September 22nd to 23rd, that night, is the last time we know that JJ was seen alive. And we believe on the 23rd, there's evidence that he was buried on Chad's property on the 23rd of September. In October, October 2nd, keeping in mind Charles is now dead, Chad is still married. Tammy is still alive at this point. Chad has made a phone call, actually shortly after Charles' death, this is a little earlier, to mortuary crematorium, asking about how much it would cost to get his uncle Charles cremated, and then have the remains flown to Louisiana, where he actually was from. And he pretends it was like his own family, and he says Chad Daybell, and then he spells it wrong on purpose, and it's this ridiculous thing that he did for Lori. But anyway, Tammy is still alive at this point. But by October 6th, Chad is telling Lori that Tammy now is a zombie, and the spirit named Viola is in her. Again, Latter-day Saint believes we do not believe in zombies like this. We do believe, again, that the spirit world is here. And sure, can there be evil spirits? Yeah, and good spirits too. And they probably affect us on some level, but they're not going to take possession over our bodies like that. Let alone in a sense that the only way to get rid of them would be to kill the body. There is no planet, there is nowhere where that is even remotely part of our doctrine or teachings. Like, no. If anything, it would be like Christ casting out a spirit. So bring in a priesthood holder, a leader in the church, and have them cast it out. But that would be the extent of it. There would be no like, oh, we have to kill the body. Hate it when that happens. No, that's not how this works. Okay, so by October 8th, Tammy posts on Facebook, okay, something creepy happened, guys. I saw a man with a paintball gun aimed at me, and he tried to shoot it, and it didn't go off, and he ran off. That was really kind of freaky. Now, they lived in a relatively rural area of Rexburg. So it's not like a busy street, and she was a little freaked out. We now know that was Alex Cox, and I think he was wearing a ski mask or something, and it was not a paint gun. It was a real gun, and it didn't go off the way it was supposed to. Mid-October, Lori takes off to Hawaii, and then she ends up in Missouri and she's traveling all over the place, which I imagine on some level she thinks is going to give her an alibi. But during that time, Alex is again found on the Daybell property. October 18th to 19th, and that's when Tammy is found dead that night. And her death is then ruled natural causes, and Chad, of course, then refuses an autopsy, because we don't want the trauma. Sure. Okay, but again, if he had been, let's say, in Utah, that would not have been a choice. It would have had to have been an autopsy. So, again, she dies on the night of October 18th to 19th. November 3rd, Chad and Lori fly to Hawaii. Now, also, a couple of months, I want to say it was like even March, I believe, the previous March. So Charles and Tammy are both alive at this point. We see the first time that they start looking online for malachite wedding rings, which is the kind of ring they both got and wore. I have pictures of them. And also, again, Lori had visited Chad also the previous March. Anyway, these things got heated up. But Lori had purchased malachite rings for them before Tammy died through Charles's Amazon account and had them shipped to Idaho, where she had just moved. In fact, that's how Kay, his brother, figured out where Lori had gone, because she had access to Charles's Amazon account. I was like, what is this Idaho address? So that's when Kay actually called the police and said, hey, we have not been able to get hold of my grandson. We haven't seen him in months. Our last FaceTime call was very strange, and we haven't seen him since. Could you go do a welfare check? Tammy and Chad have been married for a couple of weeks by this point in Kauai, dancing on the beach with a ukulele and all of that fun stuff. They come back and pretend that they don't even know each other hardly. When the police show up, they talk to Lori a couple of times. She claimed that the kids are in Idaho with her friend Melanie Gibb. No, Arizona, sorry. They're in Idaho. She says her kids are with my friend Melanie Gibb. On November 27th, the police get search warrants for Lori's residence, her brother Alex's residence, and they were in townhomes in the same little area, and her niece Melanie. And I believe she was also in the same little townhome area. And the niece Melanie, that's another video. And that's actually relevant to the charges that Lori's facing, because Melanie's ex-husband, Brandon, was also a target that Alex failed to kill, but attempted to. And also they got the search warrant for her storage unit, where they found all kinds of things, the kids' belongings, and CCTV video showing heavy containers being brought in and out that might have been bodies, that kind of thing, with Chad. Anyway, December 11th, authorities in Utah, where Tammy is now buried. Remember, she's buried in Springville in the same cemetery they both worked at. Tammy's body is exhumed, and they perform an autopsy and then re-enter her body the very same day. They don't release the results for a long time, but becomes clear eventually they're both charged with, of course, killing her and conspiracy to kill her. January of 2020, Chad and Lori have taken off from Rexburg back to Hawaii. They've left things kind of in disarray. So now the Hawaiian police have search warrants for their Hawaii townhouse, car, etc. And then they search and they find, the kids, Tylee and JJ's birth certificates and tablet and all this other stuff, but not them. And then she served a warrant to produce the children in 5 days. She does not produce them in 5 days, but she gets a few weeks before she is finally arrested. She's arrested on February 20th in Kauai, extradited to Idaho. And then Chad follows her back as the loving husband he is. June 9th of 2020, keep in mind now at this point, the pandemic has happened, so things really slow down, but June 9th, the bodies are discovered on Chad's property. They're dug up and the remains are found and then later verified to be Tylee and JJ. And we can get into some of that later about the ways they were killed and the horrible scrap. Dr. John and I believe I concur with him on this one. Granted, he's the PhD, I'm not. He believes that at least in Tylee's case, her death might have been somewhat of a religious ritual. And I think that is probably true. Which breaks my heart. Think like, Abraham and Isaac kind of situation, but messed up. Okay. Fast forward to June of 2021. Chad is charged with first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan, first-degree murder of J.J. Vallow, first-degree murder of his wife Tammy Daybell, conspiracy to commit murder of Tylee, conspiracy to commit murder of J.J., and conspiracy to commit murder of Tammy, and insurance fraud related to Tammy's death. Again, because he managed to get her to up her insurance to the max right before he killed her. Then Lori, meanwhile, was charged with similar charges: first-degree murder of Tylee and JJ, conspiracy to commit murder of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy, and grand theft related to the Social Security benefits that she was stealing. June 29th, then, shortly after, the Arizona authorities also charged Lori with Charles's murder. And there is a push, especially by Joe Ryan's sister, to look into Joe's death as a possible homicide as well. He actually died. His body was discovered a few days after he passed away, and so they thought, he probably just died of a heart attack, and then no one found him for a few days. Knowing what we know historically, it wouldn't surprise me the least if Lori was somehow involved, and Alex as well. We don't know. I hope that the case is reopened on that. So, April of 2023, Lori went on trial in Idaho for all of those counts, except for the one on Charles. That's later. In May 12th of 2023, the verdict came in guilty on all counts. Sentencing was on July 31st for her 3 consecutive life sentences for Tylee, JJ, and Tammy's deaths. And I'm forgetting what the actual sentence was for the money fraud, but basically she'll be in prison for life. In November, she was extradited to Arizona to stand trial for Charles's death. And some people say, well, what's the point? She'll be in prison forever. I say Charles and his family and his death matter as much as anyone else's, and they deserve to have justice too. And also, you never know if a case is going to be overturned or what's going to happen with appeals or whatever. And if by some chance Lori were to get off with somehow in Idaho, and she's still convicted in Charles's case, she's still behind bars. So I'm all for it. Let's do that. So she is currently, as of this recording, March of 2024, she is in Arizona awaiting trial for Charles's death. Meanwhile, 2024, April 1st, Chad's trial begins. Lori's case, the death penalty was removed. I'm forgetting the reasons why on that offhand, but in Chad's case, the death penalty is still on the table. And some of the delays with his trial are related to that. His lawyer saying, oh, I'm not death penalty certified. And it's like, well, yeah, you don't have to be, for one. And his lawyer not wanting to be on the case anymore and wanting more help. And he's like, the judge is like, you've known all of this for years and you haven't said anything, so sorry. But anyway, lots of weird things going on there. So that is a massive nutshell of Chad Daybell. And so again, I will go into more of Lori. We'll go into her background on all of her various husbands. And a lot of crazy stuff with that. There's some fascinating information when it comes to Adam Cox and some of his insights that I've found as well. There are so many fascinating and disturbing elements. And then there's other cases that I'll be talking about soon that they actually come together when it comes to past lives, to Julia Rowe, and to another book called Visions of Glory. They all seem to come back to those things, including Tim Ballard, the Thibodeau family, and more. It is just disturbing. So stay tuned. We'll be covering a lot more of that. If this was helpful or you enjoyed this at all, give us a like and a follow, subscribe, share with your friends. And again, check out the resources in the description because I have a lot of excellent resources to recommend where a lot of this information came from. And so I'll be following along and giving updates as the trial happens. And in the meantime, enjoy your chocolate and have a great day.